Before we get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about the reimagining of the Central Library, as it's only months away. In September of this year, this building will close, and we will undergo a 2-year renovation of the building. And when we come back, you'll enjoy a modern 21st century library with more study and public meeting space, expanded parking, digital creation equipment, really a place to convene, collaborate, and create, and we're very excited about that. While the library is closed, the American Indian Resource Center cannot be mothballed. This community cannot be mothballed. It can't go away for 2 years. So we're very happy and excited that this center will temporarily relocate to the Zarrow Regional Library, often referred to as the West Regional Library, which is near the intersection of 75 and I-45. So please know that this will continue on even though this library is closed. Speaking of the American Indian Resource Center, we are very proud of the national reputation this center has achieved and continues to achieve. From national author visits, storytellers featuring local presenters, to ongoing American Indian language classes, Tulsa City County Library's American Indian Resource Center is preserving the past while introducing the important cultural traditions to a new generation of library customers. I would like to recognize Maxine and Jack Zarrow Family Foundation for their continued support of the center since its inception in 2000. Their family's commitment to the American Indian Resource Center to provide family programming throughout the year at many Tulsa City County Library locations is extremely wonderful. I would also like to thank our sponsors who have helped make today's ceremony possible. They are Cherokee Builders Incorporated, the Seminole Nation, Dr. Frank and Mary Shaw, University of Tulsa, Vision and Voices Digital Content Creations, Lions Indian Store, the Tulsa Library Trust, the Tulsa City County Library Staff Association, and the Tulsa World. Additionally, we would like to welcome these special guests who are in the audience today. We have Joy Harjo, who was right there. She is. She was the inaugural recipient of the 2001 American Indian Writers Award, who will share her writing and music today during Conversations with Joy Harjo at 1:30 p.m. We have Aragon Starr. Aragon? Sorry, she's here. I saw her earlier. Aragon is a Los Angeles-based author from Oklahoma who will share her publishing insights during this panel discussion, Natives in Comics, at 11:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. We have Dana Tiger. Dana? Yay. Dana is an award-winning painter and a member of the Oklahoma Women's Hall of Fame. I would also like to acknowledge Theresa Reynolds. If you don't know Theresa, you need to know Theresa because she's the baddest librarian in a good way. And the American Indian Resource Center coordinator here at the Tulsa City County Library, and she has coordinated this entire day of events for us. If we could give her a big round of applause. Theresa and her committee have planned a full day of educational family activities. We hope you leave today with a greater appreciation of the American Indian culture and its impact on our community. Now, please join me in welcoming our Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Archie Mason, who is a member of our American Indian Resource Center Advisory Committee. Archie?
It's a pleasure to be here, and again, welcome all of you to the American Indian Festival of Words, and do the things that we have done. And again, for Theresa, acknowledging her and all that she has done. It hasn't been just 1 week worth of work. She'll start on next week. She gets busy and gets everybody together, and there's a great deal of research that goes on, and people are considered, and people become the receivers. And this year, again, we are acknowledging a very special person that we'll introduce here in just a moment. But before we go any further, in the world of the Muskogee Creek and the Seminole peoples, for many of us that live among the peoples, one of the expressions that's so very important is from the church folks that have these beautiful Muskogee hymns, and church hymns we call them, We have certain music and things that go around our ceremonial grounds, and we have music that goes in the churches as well. And they're all so very important to us, because in this music, as we know as Indian people, that's our history. That's what we share through music and song. There's a lot of teaching that goes on. So we're glad to acknowledge at this time Mr. Wotko Long and his group sitting right here. I think they've got a couple of songs that they want to render to us. I don't know if you want to introduce them from there. I don't know what you're going to sing, but you're welcome to do so because you are on the air. So
These songs, most of them they were composed as we were coming through the Trail of Tears. So sometimes when you can feel the hurt in these songs and the crying, but they always knew that they were going to another land. Abiyana was over there. We're going to the other land. And there's a couple of songs. There's this one, there's two songs that we're going to sing, but the last one we're going to sing is Istamanis Domin, Folatskat. And that was two sisters were on the Trail of Tears. They were separated. And as they were going across the Trail of Tears, they were separated, and she was lonely for her sister. And she composed this song as they were going along the Trail of Tears. And then the people, as they were going along the Trail of Tears, heard this song, and then they just kept singing it, and it reached her sister. But it talks about, wherever you're at, and wherever I'm at, well, I'll pray for you. I know you'll be praying for me. But, these people were hurting at the time, and they still had that courage to go on, because if not, we wouldn't be here. But we are, and we're strong, and we're going to sing a couple of songs right here now. This first one is called Start Your Songs with a Prayer. No, wait a minute. That's the last one. Last one's dedicated to our main man here, because I know that he said that he went to, it reminds him of church times when he was at church, and that's a good feeling to be able to go back, and that's for your comfort. That's your comfort zone in any songs, and you come back, even regardless of where you go, but it's good that you reach out, have your dreams, and reach out there and grab them, There are very few of our people who do that, but I'm glad that you're out there, and you really noticed out there. You're going down in history, man, I tell you that. You're already making it. Istama stormen forske hamen me kosaba chenane chime me kosaba me kosaba kedoyatska Saba skenane cheme me kosaba apasama kedoyatsa momes koma histamalis tome olatske hameme Kosabat skenane chememe kosabat ubohida kedoyatsa momes koma histamalis tome kolatske hameme Kosabat skenane chememe kosabat
At this time, and before we get into the award presentation and acknowledgments, we will be presenting a Pendleton blanket as one of the pieces of the award that goes to Mr. Harjo. But I need to explain firstly that before the Pendleton Mills began bringing blankets to us Indian folks here in Oklahoma, long before we had the word robe or blanket in our languages, we had the word robe, and that signified the buffalo robe. And the buffalo robe, as it was prepared, became a very high honor to present to another individual because it provided shelter, warmth, it represented life in the buffalo on the plains and the prairie. So that award, that item, the buffalo robe, was very, very special. But the buffalo disappeared. And we had to replace that. And we have done so in many of our tribes, our plains tribes and others, with the very beautiful Pendleton blankets today from Pendleton, Oregon. Many native designs on these items and robes today. Been around 100 years or so. And so we have that today, and I wanted to share with you the reason that we're presenting a Pendleton blanket, because that's one of the highest honors that we can share with one another is a Pendleton. And it's a beautiful item, and you will see that in just a moment. It is at this time that I ask our American Indian Resource Center selection member, Mary Shaw, to please come forward, and Mr. Mark Wilson, if you'll come forward, as they at this time will be acknowledging Mr. Sterlin Harjo, an award-winning screenwriter, producer, and director of the Seminole and Muskogee Creek people. And he is to receive this 2013 American Indian Festival of Words Writers Award. And this award recognizes written contributions of outstanding American Indian authors, poets, journalists, and film and stage script writers. He is born in Holdenville and now living in Tulsa. And many people know Holdenville is the center of the universe. And so we are certainly glad to acknowledge Mr. Sterlin Harjo. So at this time, Mary and Mark.
On behalf of the Library and the American Indian Resource Committee, congratulations with your check.
Thank you.
And with your award.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Congratulations.
Please stand. Honoring Mr. Harjo.
Hi, thank you. I didn't know if I was supposed to sit down and then get reintroduced. I like to get introduced a lot. So, but no, I mean, there's so many people to thank. Thank you all for giving me this honor. The American Indian Resource, say it right? Did I say it? Okay, Center, yes, and the Tulsa Library. Thank you for doing this. It's funny, and also Theresa. I mean, you had a huge job ahead of you trying to track me down and stay in touch with me. Seriously, like she had to call like a friend of a cousin, and then that cousin wrote me and called me and then said, "Can you call this lady back?" And then I didn't, and then they had to keep saying that. So thank you for staying on top of me and making me answer your calls. And I just wanted to thank the hymn singers that got up and sang a song. It's really important to me, those songs. All of my films, I've always included Creek songs in those films. And I'll continue to do that as long as I make films. It's just, growing up, it was such a special thing to me, and then I didn't realize what it was until I left Oklahoma, and then I realized that it was very unique to a very specific part of Oklahoma. For me, one thing that I want to do is I don't want young people to take it for granted. And so I always try to include those songs in my films. If it just makes one kid think, wow, that's kind of cool. These songs that I grew up with are in a movie, and maybe I'll learn these songs. That's enough for me. I grew up in Holdenville, Oklahoma. I grew up in Minnie Springs Baptist Church and First Indian Baptist Church in Holdenville. I'm a member of Pecan Tallahassee Ceremonial Ground. Both of those things are very important to me. Thank the Mikos for coming, and I think, what are y'all doing, dancing? I don't know what y'all's doing. Something. Said something about dancing. And Joy and Dana and everybody for being here, my family. It's interesting being honored as a writer. The little amount of press that I did for this, first of all, let me say that it's weird for me to be honored for a whole day of it. I told Theresa, I was like, man, I'm from Holdenville, we're like beat into us to be humble, and she kept saying like, well, you got to go to this thing, and I was like, oh, well, what if I just sit in the back and watch? She's like, but you're the one talking. How are you going to watch yourself talking? But it's nice to be recognized as a writer because that's something that I'm rarely recognized as, and it's actually the main thing that I do. Because I've made 3 films. And I shoot those for 18 days, edit them for a few months, and then they premiere. But the years in between, I'm writing. So that's mainly what I'm doing is writing. And at the same time, I feel like it's all writing. I was telling this to students yesterday at Jinx. Whenever you make a film, you write the script, And then whenever you make the film, you're still writing, but you have all these obstacles in your way. You get actors, you get sets, you get money, you get limited time, and they basically say, and makeup, and they basically say, they basically tell you, like, you have to rewrite that script that you wrote, that script that you wrote when you had all the time in the world and all the money of your, you could imagine anything. Rewrite that script with all of these limitations. And so then you have to rewrite it with all of these actors and crew and annoying, producers. Not Chad Burris. Chad Burris is a good producer, but there was a producer before that was annoying. But so then you rewrite it, and then you go to the editing room, and you have all of this footage. And you basically look at all this footage and look at what you didn't do right and what you weren't able to get, because what you imagined is going to be so much different than what you filmed. And so whenever you look at the footage, a lot of it is, some of it's surprise, and it's like, wow, this is better than I imagined. But then some of it is also, man, I didn't get what I wanted to get. So then you have to rewrite your script again. So it's a new rewrite. You take all of these images, and you have to rewrite the script and make it work. So it is all writing, I feel like. I feel like it's all writing. So it's a great honor to be honored for as a writer, because that's something that I never get done. I was looking for Aaron Riggs, but I don't think he's here. He works here at the library. You'll have to give him a hard time for not showing up. Oh, is he working? He's been in all my movies. Actually, he's an employee here at the library, and he was in my first film because we worked at Borders Bookstore together. And the character description of one of the actors was a bearded college guy, and Aaron has this beard that he doesn't even have lips. It just kind of goes inside his face. And so I was staring at him one day while we were making coffee in Borders Bookstore, and I was like, man, I'm casting that guy in the film. So I think it's actually listed as bearded college guy, Aaron Riggs, on the film. And then the next film, Barking Water, he played a guy who, I don't know if you've seen Barking Water, but the two main characters are on someone's land. They're on this white guy's land, and she's kind of smudging him off with cedar, and he's sick, and this man comes out, and he's like, what the hell are you doing on my property? Like get off of my property. What are you doing? And that's Aaron Riggs, too. But he has a heart of gold, and he ends up making him feel much better by ways that you'll have to watch the movie to see. But, and thanks a lot for also, talking, it's wonderful, we have drum group, we have singers, we have, stomp dance represented here, and I think that, it's a really great honor to have all of that sort of presented to me, because all of this is really important to me. The ceremonial grounds and the church, I hold both of them dear to me because they are a part of who we are as Native people and Muskogee people. I believe in, the people that I come from, Muskogee people, Seminole people, and, that's one of the main reasons I've stayed here in Oklahoma. People have asked me, why did you stay? And it's mainly just to be around the people that I write about, I feel like if I lived somewhere else and I was trying to write about people at home, then it wouldn't be authentic and it wouldn't be real. I'm actually developing a documentary on Muskogee Creek hymns, just a documentary focusing on that, so it'll be a whole film focused on Muskogee hymns and singers and kind of it's all really, there's no history written down about it, but there's a lot of stories and oral tradition stuff that people have stories about the hymns, and just like the stories that were told here today. And so I want to capture all of that now and have it, and just a way to also, promote it almost and make younger Creek and Seminole people, younger kids get interested in singing them. Because once we quit singing them, then those songs are gone. So I don't want that to happen. So anytime I get a chance to put those songs out there, I do. I'm making another project that takes place in Tulsa, and it's about a homeless man in Tulsa, Creek and Yuchi man. And so I've been writing that. I just finished that script. I was really interested when I first came to Tulsa. it was weird. I probably sound like a creep, but I would drive by and I would see like the homeless population here in town, and it just really, I wouldn't say obsessed, but anytime I drove by, I would always like pay close attention, or I'd circle the block or whatever. And it was because, even though they were homeless and they were down and out, whatever, whether there was mental illness or alcoholism or whatever, they still had a community that they'd built. They built this community and they stuck together. And I would see them laughing, I would see them fighting, I would see everything. And that was really interesting to me, just because I think that when I first came to Tulsa, I didn't have that. I didn't have like a community built up around me. And so I almost missed it. It made me miss home a little bit, seeing this group of Indian people hanging out like that. And so I always try to put like a human face on things. I mean, even with my other films, I feel like I wanted to tell real stories about people in Oklahoma, Native people. And I wanted to put a face to that. So with this story about this homeless man, I wanted to put like a real face on this homeless man, and just ask the question, like, it's all imagined. I made up the whole story, but it's like, how does a person get to the streets of Tulsa, Oklahoma? And the story is not all depressing. It's surprisingly fun, but it's also a little dark. But I plan on making that this year. So that's the next thing that I have just written and I'm working on. And I don't know who's familiar with the 1491s, the funny guys that make videos online. We've been doing a lot of work. I actually just recently played a Creek Hunter that just came out online, but I'm glad I got this award before that came out, because I probably wouldn't get it. But it's the 1491s is a pretty interesting thing. I mean, I'm really proud of what we do, because I think laughter is so important to Native people. Most Native films are sad. They're pretty sad. I make sad ones too, but we're also really funny. It's not all tragedy, and it's mainly funny. It's mainly we hang out and joke around and tease each other. It's only when we're alone by ourselves with our own thoughts that we're sad. But I think that the 1491s sort of represent the humor in Native people, and that's what I'm really excited about, the 1491s, and continuing to do that. So check out the 1491s. We have a lot of new stuff coming out that's pretty funny, and eventually we're going to do a feature film. So I think that we'll do like a sort of Monty Python, Christopher Guest feature-length comedy. And it's going to be about a drum group going to play at some powwow somewhere. So I think that should be pretty funny. There's also a new one called A Day in the Life of a Powwow MC, Episode 3, and that's pretty funny. You should check that out. But anyway, I think I'm almost out of time, but I just again want to repeat, thank you so much for giving me this award, and it's a real great honor. Dang, Tully's late. Look at him just walking in. Everybody look at Tully. That's my friend back there. Thank you for giving me this award. And I'll be around, so come up and talk to me if you want to. Don't hand me any scripts or anything like that. I write my own. So, Mado, thank you.
A little bit of Q&A, a little bit of question and answers. And I know you all have questions. And I think with every question there's a great reward, because you'll get an answer. So, okay, just please raise your hand, and we have our roaming microphone right over here. Okay.
What inspired you to start writing?
I think it was my grandma. And, they were singing Creek Hymns a while ago, and I think that one thing that does is it reminds you of people that have passed away, because and she passed away 2 years ago, and she was sort of the inspiration for Barking Water 3 years ago, I think now. But, in those songs, I mean, like, if you ask anyone, even if they don't attend these churches or go anywhere, there's Aaron Riggs. Everybody wave at Aaron Riggs. He was in Barking Water and 4 Sheets to Win. That is the bearded college guy. Look at his beard. Look at that beard.
I agree.
So what was I at? What was I talking about? Oh, what inspired me? What was that? Was the question? Yes. Oh, and so my grandma did, because she, I think that I always had it in me, like I was a writer. I was just a storyteller, I think, and I just love telling stories. So I I mean, to this day, when I hear someone tell a story, I will soak everything up that they say, and I'll use parts of it in a script. And that's what I would do as a kid. I would listen to the older people in my family talk. But I moved away, and my grandma, and I was really wanting to write a script. I wrote a story about my grandma for like a 0-level college class, English class, and I wrote this story about her, a true story, and the teacher liked it a lot, so she read it out loud. She asked for my permission to read it out loud to the class, and I said, yeah. And it was the first sort of like recognition I ever got, really, as like for writing. And so then I started thinking like maybe I could do this, and then there were like 3 independent films that came out at the same time that I watched at the same time. And they were really personal films, and I thought, wow, maybe I could write about, where I'm from. So I started writing a little bit, but then I went to Oregon, and I got a letter from my grandma. I wish I still had it. I don't know what happened to it. But in the letter, she said, you should come back home sometime and write about these Indian churches out here and down here where we're from. And it just gave me this idea to write a script about an Indian church. And so this young man, and actually there's a preacher that yells real loud. Richard Pickup, right, is his name? He yells real loud when he preaches. I mean, he like sweats and yells really loud. And when I was a kid, I remember asking my mom if he was mad at God. And then I asked her if he was mad at me, and she kept saying no. But he sweats, and he just paces the ground, like slams his hand on the deal. And so I wrote a story about a young Indian man who was scared to go to church on Sunday because he was scared of the preacher because they yelled so loud. And so he would go on Saturday. So he wouldn't go on Sunday. He would go on Saturday and just sit out on the outside seating area and just, pray or whatever. That was sort of the basis of it. That was this kid growing up. But so, she just gave me an idea to write about stuff that I grew up around. And then after that, I just kept, I wrote a script, and that was it. Like I think also I took a class called Intro to Film and Video Studies with a teacher at OU named Misha Nedeljkovic, and he just showed me a lot of movies that were like nothing I'd ever seen before, and that really was inspiring, I think. So all of that, all of the above. Carmen.
Sterlin. By the way, Sterlin's really awesome to work with. I worked with him doing makeup on Barking Water.
She did makeup on Barking Water.
Indian time late. But either way, this guy's awesome to work with. But I want to know, as somebody that's been on your set and on your crew and whatnot, what was the craziest moment that you've had, either on set or coming up with an idea writing? I mean, all the different stuff was, besides ripping my car out of ditches and weird stuff like that, what's the craziest thing that I didn't see that you've seen on set, or that they need to hear about that we both saw?
Were you there when Ty, no you weren't, I don't think, when Ty got bit by a dog?
We had just towed my Volvo out of a ditch.
Man, there's so many crazy things. Like we had a buddy, a guy that got bit by a dog. We accidentally left him. We were doing these driving scenes, and he was just waiting on the side of the road, and then we left him, and we all went back to like where we were base camping out of. And so we were all like kind of celebrating the day, giving each other high fives or whatever. And we kept hearing this walkie-talkie go off in the car that we were using, and it was Ty yelling at us, but we couldn't hear it. And then finally we heard it. We're like, oh no, we left him, we forgot. And so we went to get him, and he was like limping. No, he'd come back, and he was like limping. He had blood running down his leg, and some dog had like run out and bit him.
This is the director, by the way. This is the director, by the way, or the location manager at that one.
Location manager, assistant director.
Integral part that we left.
Yeah, and then he had to go and get like a tetanus shot, or what was it? He had to get like something.
Or Wailika, Holdenville.
He was like throwing up all day. We were in Ponca City.
We were monitoring.
Yeah.
That was good. Just curious.
But there was other stuff. I mean, there's been. One of the hardest days was whenever I was filming with my family right here, who's actually in Barking Water. It's the scene where they're like making fry bread and stuff. And what had happened is we were supposed to shoot another scene that day, but this like crazy storm hit, and it was just like, it was like flood. It was like raining, and so we needed a scene. That we could shoot that day. We couldn't shoot anything else because the continuity of the weather wouldn't be the same. And so I decided to shoot the scenes that all take place at this house on that day because it was a whole day shoot. And so we just like wrote the weather into the story. We were like, all right, it's raining this day. That's what's going to be the story. But it's also like stressful to have like, we were like at my parents' house, like tracking in mud. And then like
I remember.
We had like a crew there and all stuff. But then actually the hardest was on Four Sheets to the Wind, I think, because we had Sand Creek Eufaula come to sing. We had like all of these different like elders there. It was like 101 degrees or something. My grandma and everybody, we were all at my grandma's house, actually right near our family cemetery. We had all of these church people there and all these elders there to sing songs at this fake funeral, at this like movie scene funeral, and trying to worry about people like not having a heat stroke. But then also like, Indians, you can't like put them on a schedule. It's like one time I was shooting a short film at, where was that? Salt Creek in outside of Holdenville. And my crew was like, white guys from LA. It was like two guys. One guy was from Tulsa. But they weren't used to being around or working around Indians down from that area. And so right when we got out, it was like they were like ready to go. They were like, oh yeah, we're gonna go set up, and we'll start shooting, and I'll set up these lights. But where do you want us to set up? And I was like, no, it's not gonna work like that. I was like, don't even pull your equipment out. Like we're gonna have to go in and eat, and then we're gonna have to like talk for a couple hours, and then eventually we will get to making the film. And they were like, oh, okay. And so like that's exactly what happened. Like went in. They were like, we got you some food. They fed us. We sat for like a couple of hours and just talked, about everything. And then finally we were able to shoot. But so, as a filmmaker, that's also what I have to worry about and make sure everyone's cool with that and everyone knows that. Most of the non-Indian filmmakers, people that work with me on the crew, they're used to that by now. One time, Fred's this like short, red-headed guy from Sacramento, and he's the cinematographer on my films. And then there was another white guy with me, and we were doing location scouts for Barking Water, and we were just driving around back roads. And Fred loves telling this story because right in the middle of that day, we were near Holdenville, and right in the middle, my mom called me and was like, you remember that blah, blah, blah's funeral's today, right? And I was like, oh man, I forgot. And so it was a cousin's funeral, and so I was like, stop the car. I was like, all right, guys, we got to go to this funeral. And so we go to this Middle Creek Church in Holdenville, and it's nothing but Indians. There's like everyone there is an Indian, and everyone there is either Creek or Seminole or both. And we get out, and so it's these two like little white guys, and like I was like, just tuck in your shirts or whatever. And they were like, man, why did you make us go to a funeral? And so I just drugged them to this funeral where they didn't know anyone. And they just like sat there and had to like listen. They were listening to Indian song and stuff, and they just had to like stand there and like be there at this funeral. And so Fred loves to tell this story when he's back in LA about how I made him go to a funeral. So eventually they all get used to it, basically is what I'm saying. So yeah, but that's always stressful whenever you're dealing with all of those elements at one time. So yeah.
I think you are the only director I've ever worked with on all. Thank you for starting my film career.
Yeah,
but it has a call sheet that says 2 Indian houses past the Red Barn. And I ain't kidding, eh? He's got a question too. Thanks. Congratulations, Sterlin.
Thank you, sir. My name is Wayne Watson, and I'm a full-blood Choctaw Indian. And I was just wondering what your views are on the Keystone XL pipeline and how your thoughts on that is.
I'm not an expert on it. I haven't done, I'm pretty busy, but, I'm friends with Casey Camp and Richard Ray Whitman, who are, have told me a lot about it. And I think it's something that everyone needs to be more aware of what it's going to cause and what it's going to do, because it cuts through all of our lands, basically. It's near Holdenville. And the big thing is they're saying that it's creating jobs, but I think everyone needs to look into at what extent it's creating jobs. So I think it is something that we need more information on. But, it's like Walmart. Walmart kills small towns, but no one cares about that. You still shop there. everyone that lives in a small town still shops there every day, even though it's sort of cutting your own legs off because it's killed your main street. You know, there's no small businesses anymore in small towns. I mean, I was in Okmulgee the other day. I couldn't believe how many small town businesses there were. I mean, that main street looks alive still, which is so rare in Oklahoma. So, you know, if there's a promise of money for the pipeline, then it'll probably happen because people, you know, don't sort of, you know, you don't look past the surface or what people tell you. So, you know, hopefully people will. Yeah.
I would like to know, do you know your audience and do you write for your audience?
Whenever I write, my audience, I feel like the audience that I have is always like my family and like older people and my, you know, just like, I feel like it's Creek people and Seminole people that I grew up with. For the most part, for most of my projects that I've done so far. And it's like, because I never want to tell a story about Creek people in Oklahoma or Seminole people in Oklahoma or both without, I mean, for instance, there's a lot of films made by Native people that I feel like are made for non-Indian audiences. And so what you have is you see these films that talk about, the whole film ends up talking about like, oh, I'm so Indian, you know, it's all about identity at that point because that's what non-Indians want to see, you know, they get a kick out of like Indian, oh, that's an Indian joke, that's funny, he's Indian and he's telling a joke about being Indian. But I think that if you tell that story from the perspective of being inside that culture, instead of outside of that culture looking in, if you tell it from being inside, then it's going to be a more unique story. You don't have to deal with identity. You just have to deal with being a regular person who happens to be a Native person. And then I think it's going to be a more unique and authentic film or story. So.
For you personally, what would you say would be one of the greatest difficulties or challenges in conveying your messages?
Say that. What was the first part of that?
For you, what would be one of the greatest difficulties or challenges you faced in conveying your messages?
Probably, I don't know that I have a message, but to get the point across, like to make the film, you know, to make the film that I'm trying to make, the hardest part is always funding. You know, like there's not a lot of funding for Native stories or Native films. You know, people always say go to the tribes, but they're not kicking down any money for films. Or if they do, it's Black Cloud. But so what you do is like you don't have, so I mean, whenever there's not a lot of money, there's no time. Whenever there's no time, the ideas that you had in your script are not going to get made for the screen. So that's always the biggest, I think, obstacle in the way. So, man, you know, like hopefully at some point there will be more funding in Oklahoma. Like I would love to see more funding for. I mean, it's weird because like all of the Indian, the Native, the First Nations filmmakers up in Canada, friends of mine, or the Maori filmmakers in New Zealand, there's a big funding system. So they get their films funded, and it's really pretty easy for them, you know. And like I have friends in Canada that when they hear the budget for my for Barking Water, they can't believe it because they make short films that cost more than that, you know. And we really like to make Barking Water and to make Four Sheets to Win, and probably to make this next film that I'm making. It's gonna, you know, it's like fighting tooth and nail to get it to the screen. It's not easy. It's gonna be really hard. I have to be ready to not make money because, you know, there's just not enough money to do it. And I don't make money off the movies at all. I don't see anything. Like the only thing I make money off of is speaking, showing the films, and then like pick up commercial work that I do or whatever. I never make any money on the films, DVDs or anything. So there's like actually a guy that sells my DVDs at a powwow that probably makes more money than me. I should probably try to do that or hit him up for some royalties or something. But yeah, I would say that that's the biggest obstacle. There's one right there. This is the last one? Okay, this is the last question.
Don't go.
Hey.
I want to know, are you interested in horror or doing anything that has to do with Muskogee culture and
Yeah,
ghost stories and stuff like that. That would be so cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a scary thing because you're told not to talk about some of that stuff. But I remember one time I had this idea. It was going to be a story. And it was going to have something to do with little people and stuff like that. And I had it all written out in my head. It was ready to go. It was like all there. It was so good. And I went outside of my parents' house. They live out in the country, and there's like a tree line right in the backyard that's like the woods. And I remember standing there and really thinking about this. I was so excited. I was like, I'm going to start writing this. And then all of a sudden, I got this feeling that said, don't do what you're about to do. Like, I don't ever hear like an inside voice or anything, but like I knew what this feeling was all of a sudden. And it felt like there was a lot of things watching me in the woods. And I swear, like, that is the feeling that I got. And that day forward, I dropped that idea, and I never thought about it again. But I do think that there's some stuff that I could do, horror film-wise, that I would like to do. I mean, this film that I'm making right now, The Homeless Man, it sort of gets into that territory of, like, sort of really dark and like there's a person that's kind of basically haunting him, like in the film, and it gets pretty like dark, but it's not. I wouldn't call it a horror film, you know. It's sort of a suspenseful at times. They also part of that movie is they're looking for the old Indian bar. I just made up that there was an old Indian bar in Tulsa, which there were. People always talk about them, but in this story, I made up one that they're looking for that they used to go to whenever they just want to see it because it's so long since they've been in, because the man just got out of prison for like 25 years and he wants to see this old Indian bar, and so they keep looking, so he keeps going to like these Greek restaurants and like, it's like, I know it was in here, right? And the guy's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Do you want a euro or what? You know, and so he keeps looking for this Indian bar. And they finally find it, and it's so disappointing because it's just leveled. It's just like a parking lot at that point. It's just like a flat concrete slab. But I want to try to get the rights to Come and Get Your Love by Redbone because I want them to because they decide to act like they're at the bar anyway. And so they act like they're sort of dancing to Redbone, Come and Get Your Love. And so I want to try to get the rights to that song and put that in that movie. Because every older Indian of that generation freaking loves that song. I don't care for it, but if that comes on, if it played right now, I bet every one of y'all get up and start dancing. But yeah, so that's it. I'll make a horror movie someday. Thank you very much for the award.
Well, I don't know. I was having flashbacks. He was having flashbacks. I said, Orpha's Lounge, where's that? I said, God. I said, that's too much. Come and Get Your Love. I said, yeah, I know those words. I said, we sing that all the time, man. But that's another generation. That was back there. So I'm glad we survived that age. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, as we get into this next part of the rest of the day, I'm going to invite Theresa Reynolds to come up and share with you what is going on the rest of the day. Theresa?
I want to thank you for coming today. It's exciting to see everybody here. I do have one Richard Pickup story to share with you. He is very loud and doesn't need a microphone, but I was the camp cook one year, my first time to be the cook. And you have to get up at 5 and you have to do all this, just cook all day. So by a Thursday evening, we were sitting in the sanctuary. He's loud anyway. He has on a microphone. We're sitting towards the front. I fall asleep. I really did. I fell asleep. And I asked our teens, why didn't you wake me up? And they said, we knew you was tired. But, like this guy over here, he can't believe I fell asleep through Richard Pickup, but I really did. Over here we have stomp dance presentation and a war dance presentation going on. Over in the plaza room we have Aragon Starr and her panel. They're going to be doing Native and Comics, immediately followed by Joy Harjo. Don't worry if the room just fills up. We have an overflow room. We have in the children's, I have to be very nice to these guys because I'm working them hard today. As soon as they get through singing, then they're going to go over and do a puppet show presentation, and they'll be the ones doing the war dance presentation later. But then they'll do the puppet show, and immediately following will be Will Hill and the Mahimwados, they will be doing a presentation. Up on the third floor, we have cultural demonstrations going on. Then we have children's crafts. There's just things all over. So please, enjoy yourself, have fun, go out on the plaza. We have Tulsa Brownies hamburgers out there. And I don't think I've missed anything, but please forgive me if I have. But just enjoy the day. Enjoy the day. We're so pleased that you came. Thank you.
We'd like to say, again, thank you for all of you for attending this morning's activities on behalf of the advisory group that is with this very active Tulsa County Library and what they have done for Native peoples. This is a great, excellent place to come and do your research and find out about things. So as we are in closing at this time, we're going to have a couple of songs from our drum group over here. That's going to allow you to get up and start to mingle around and get to where you want to go. Grab you a brochure so you'll know what's going on. And at this time, we say thank you very much. That's the closing of this part of the program this morning.